the whole point in your having this conversation is not the one-off situation where I'm going to talk to this elected official today because I have an appointment or because they're coming for a tour, and then that's the end of it. If you approach every meeting with the idea that you're going to be a source for that elected official, that your job is to, through the course of this meeting, is to convince them that you are believable, quotable, accurate, reliable, and responsible, all of those qualities, then you will be a good source. You want them to call you next time that they have an idea, this legislation about farmers markets or whatever the issue is. That fellow that gave me the tour, I'm going to call him because he knew what he was talking about. To be believable, you need to act like you're a leader of others. I know I already said that, but it also includes being nonpartisan. You really ought to know which party the person that you're having on tour is from. Certainly, most legislators have websites. You can go see what issues they support. It's important to thank them for previous support, if indeed they have supported you previously. But the idea that communicating with a legislator means you have to agree with them in all of their other positions is not true at all. What you're trying to do is be a good source, give them a story that's sticky so that they can retell other people. That's the reason why you want to give them a short, concise story so that they can retell it as they say, I talked to a really good farmer's market manager and she said A, B, C, D, and that legislator's able to tell somebody else how important that was and be able to repeat your story because you had it concise and believable. The idea of political maturity is something I think is helpful to people in understanding how they should be talking with an elected official. I define political maturity as being able to have a conversation with someone who you know has very different viewpoints than yours, maybe of a very different party. You may not have anything in common with them on the issues, but in the sense of political maturity, you still need to have a conversation with this person because they are an influencer of your future in terms of legislation or regulation or something in the public domain, regulatory power. Get over it. That's what political maturity is. Get over it. Get over yourself, really. This person who's an elected official who's there that you want to talk to, if you make it evident that you disagree with them, they're not going to listen to you a whole lot. It'll be harder for them to listen to you a whole lot. If you're so brash as to say, I voted for you in the last election, did you get my check? Well, that's not a really good way to have a conversation with an elected official also. It's embarrassing. It's also illegal. Should you do that in an office building here in D.C., a Senate or House of Representatives office building, you're asking that member of Congress to have an illegal conversation. They cannot talk about fundraising on federal property. Probably better not do this at a post office either. But you want to be quotable also. I mentioned quotable. That means speaking in sound bites, right? Back to that headline thing. You want to communicate in headlines. You want to have pithy quotes. Now, you're going to try this out on other people before you actually have this meeting, right? In your own conversations, practicing for a conversation like this is a good thing because it calms you. It's preparation is usually a good thing. You don't have to memorize anything, but being able to speak in sound bites so that, again, not because elected officials have a really short attention span, but because you want them to remember what you say so they can repeat it. Also, everything you say should be accurate. Spin is what the other guy does, right? But be accurate in what you say. If you're going to use some facts, this farmer's market has gross sales of $200,000 a year, know your source, know where you're getting your information from, because you may get asked, how do you know that? Where'd you find that out? So being accurate doesn't mean believing what you say. It means having the evidence behind you to make someone else believe what you say, to be accurate. Also, I would define reliable in this situation as being able to tell both sides of the story. If I go to an elected official and visit with them, and I say, we want to have more farmers markets in downtown areas, and we want it in this specific area, this specific location. And I fail to mention that that's in the parking lot right next door to a grocery store or a permanent farm stand. If I sort of leave that out, I'm not being very reliable in my communication. I'm basically leading that elected official into a minefield. Your job in communicating to an elected official is to identify that minefield, sort of link arms with them, and help walk them through it. In terms of, here are the people that won't like what I'm suggesting that you do. By telling both sides of the story, you make yourself much more reliable. And of course, in terms of being responsible, responsible people don't criticize other people. This is not your time to expound upon your views and who you like and who you don't like. Just shut up, okay? Just don't talk about that other politician or that other farmer's market manager or whatever it is. Don't criticize other people. It diminishes you and your message. Now, we've all got opinions, which is fine. Having a meeting with an elected official is not the time to promote your opinions. Remember, you're there being hired by all those other people. And it's hired, obviously, you're a volunteer, but you're being hired by all those other people to represent their views. They didn't hire you to talk about funding Social Security or health care. They want you to talk about farmers markets or local food or whatever it is that your organization is involved in. If you keep your conversation points surrounding data, the number of farmers at this farmers market, their gross sales, the economic impact, dealing in data is pretty darn safe. At some point you have to interpret that data, and that's where things can go off the tracks a little bit, where you start to interpret data in such a way that it is biased. You want to support your own viewpoint, but remember, you need to have the ability to present both your viewpoint and acknowledge and sometimes even describe those viewpoints of your opponents, so that you're not leading that elected official into a minefield. As you slide from data to interpretation to attribution, to attribute a view to somebody else, well, that other farmer's market manager, they think they would oppose this because they're evil people, or I don't know, they're left-handed, or they're Swedish. I don't know what the reason is. When you start attributing someone else's position to understanding what's in their mind and attributing their position to your understanding of their mind, you don't sound believable anymore. It's a common thing that we do in conversation, but this is not a common conversation. We're talking, the reason you're listening to this is because we're talking about a conversation that you rarely get to have. This is a real opportunity to communicate with somebody in a way to influence public policy on behalf of all those people who have hired you to be there. Treat this responsibly. We all speak in generalizations. There was one right there, right? We're human. We can't help it. But the further you stay away from generalizations and stick towards data and leave out the attribution of motives, the more believable you're going to be. And in the end, that's what we're looking for.